brought to you almost live from the Dude in the Basement Studios. Why? Because that's where the good stuff is. It's Sips, Suds, and Smokes with your smoking hosts, the good old boys. Now it's sippin' time.
It's definitely time. You're on Sips, Suds, and Smokes. Welcome to this Sips episode where everything good in life is worth discussing. I'm one of your hosts here, good old boy Mike. We are the best thing on at 2 a.m., and we thank you for choosing to listen to us instead of the radio documentary titled My Life is Better with My Teddy Bear. So, just joining me here at the table is good old boy Jason. Good to be here. Good old gal Julieanna.
Hey, guys.
Good old boy Harmeet.
Thanks for having me.
And good old boy Bob.
Good to be here.
Now, Harmeet and Bob are joining us from the Fort Lauderdale area. You guys hang out with a group called the Bourbon Mafia, right?
Yep, I'm a member. Yep.
Bob is a made man. I'm just a pusher. Man.
But we can't talk about it.
By the way, I'm actually only a good old boy by marriage.
Yep.
And
from India, I could talk like this, but you don't want to hear that for the whole show. Besides, my head would wobble right off.
Could you please teach people from your point of heritage to enjoy bourbon just a little bit better? Is that one of the focal points of our show today?
I try. We actually have the largest selection of whiskey in the state of Florida, and that's why I'm the Mafia's pusher right now.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this truthfully. The people at Johnny Walker told me there's more Johnny Walker drunk every year in India than Johnny Walker produces every year. 60% is fake.
Wow.
Trying to get them to put suburban? Come on.
Jack Daniels with a Z. Yeah.
Very, very good.
Let me tell you, I switched to bourbon because I married a blonde girl from your place. I went to Alabama, I stole one of them.
Oh man, that is so bad.
I married an Alabama girl, and I miscegenated. My daughter is beautiful, but I can't go back there now.
So our running theme is that we've been banned from the state of Alabama. They just greet me right there at the state line, going, "I'm sorry, you can't come here." So,
by the way, roll Tide.
It's just not happening. I'm sorry, Bob. Harmeet, your microphone is no longer working on your end, so we'll have to skip them as we're going around today. All right. Listen, our sip segments are all about wine, distilled spirits, tea, and coffee. Today we'll be talking about bourbon and specifically all things Weeders on this Weeder Showdown episode.
You have it.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Michael Rumble sounded a little off there, but Sips, Suds, and Smokes is sponsored by Craft Beer Kings. Craft Beer Kings, the home of all of your wine and beer needs. You can reach them online anytime at www.craftbeerkings.com. They are home of the mystery box. It's a mystery. Bob is going to get the honors of making fun of Harmeet as well as reading our Sips ratings for today as well.
I'm very good at both of them.
Good.
We'll be tasting and discussing these bourbons and rating them with these Sips ratings for our signature sounds. Here are the ratings now. One sip, give me a glass of water to wash out my mouth.
Gangadi, water. Gangadi, bring water. Bring water.
That's an Indian accent distinctly at the end of that. I'm offended.
2 sips is nice, but what else do you have?
Well, isn't that nice?
3 sips is, this is interesting. What was that again?
Interesting.
4 sips. Let's keep this a secret to ourselves and pour me another one.
That's classified.
And 5 sips is, oh my, I was unaware anything could be this good.
Oh my goodness!
Yes! 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 Yes!
All right. Thanks, Bob. Please do not quit your day job just yet. So, now for...
Please, I want to quit my day job.
Can we say what his day job is?
Let's get ready to rumble!
Most definitely now for today's showdown. Yeah, so it's really funny. So Bob and I are both lawyers, so the
Said you were
integrity
tell.
of the
I'm
show has
saying he should quit
greatly
the day job.
degraded.
There should be less lawyers.
Or bourbon, less lawyers, right? I completely agree. Well, we definitely have a really great show lined up today. Bourbon is the name of the game today, and we have elected to have a showdown of several weeders, and we'll talk about what that is here. We'll cover some better background on weeders in a minute, but the easy answer is it's basically just the other grain besides corn, which is wheat. So there's the easy part of the equation. While this flight is not a dead even showdown, it's a wide variety of this style, and I'm sure that we'll have some great conversation as we keep sipping along here today. The weeders we're going to discuss today are Bernheim Origin, and I'm going to read the whole name, and then I'm going to tell you what it's called. John E. Fitzgerald Larceny Kentucky Straight Bourbon. Most of you just know it as Larceny. Maker's Mark. That's the one with the big wax cap on top. You can recognize that all the time. Old Fitzgerald 12-year-old. Rebel Yell, Kentucky Bourbon, and Weller 12 are the products we're going to get to over today. So, a really great lineup for our showdown show today.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right. So, listen, I have to give credit to Jason for this show idea. So, if it sucks, it's all you, man. I mean, I gotta tell you,
I'll take the blame for that one.
But well, actually, I meant to say all the success of the show is probably going to be due to your suggestions. So, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about weeders in general?
Okay, well, the simplest way to understand the difference in bourbons is by understanding the recipe and specifically the secondary grain. Bourbon by law has to be at least 51% corn, and most are around 70%. The secondary grain is usually rye, but a handful of bourbon producers use wheat instead, yielding a less spicy, less floral, less sour bourbon. Wheated bourbons, or wheaters, have a softer and often nutty flavor. Personally, my favorite bourbons are wheated, including the notoriously hard-to-find Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve. And the best value bottle on the market is Old Fitzgerald 86 proof, which runs around $10 a bottle. We have one whiskey in the lineup, and I switched the term intentionally because technically it's not a bourbon. It's mostly wheat. More than 51%, even though it's made in Kentucky at Heaven Hill Distillery. Technically, it's called whiskey, and that's the Bernheim.
Yep, definitely. So, Bob's going to cover some of information on the producers of wheaters for us today.
It's cool about the lineup that we're doing, wheated whiskeys. I'm a big fan of wheated whiskeys. There are quite a few distilleries that do make wheated whiskeys. You sometimes know them by shelf name, but the main producers that you're dealing with are Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, Maker's Mark, A. Smith Bowman also makes a fairly well-known wheater. Maker's Mark is probably the most recognized brand worldwide. Anywhere you've been, you've seen that dripping red wax.
That's thanks to you lawyers. They copyright or they trademark it, right?
They trademarked the red wax.
Nobody can use that dripping red wax.
That is true.
That is
They
very
sue
true.
everyone who
Bourbon,
does.
yeah.
Thank you.
For a bourbon.
Dripping any color wax.
They introduced the cast strength version not that long ago. It was up until about October, November. You could only get it at the gift shop, so I had to smuggle a few back from Kentucky back then.
Thank you for letting me taste that.
There you go. The A. Smith Bowman is another brand that makes a fairly well-known one, which is Virginia Gentleman, one I've enjoyed on many an occasion. Heaven Hill is one of the big producers. They make all the different iterations of Fitzgerald. There's quite a few of those. There's the Bottled and Bond, the regular, the 1849. And we have two of those today. They make Rebel Yell. They make Cabin Still. They make Larceny, which is another one we're drinking today. And the Parker's Heritage Collection, which is released every year. The last one was wheated whiskey as well. Buffalo Trace has the most wheat brands, all the different variations of Van Winkles, which I have trouble trying to keep up with the count. I also have trouble trying to find them. Oh, no, we have them all over Florida. They're everywhere now.
Come down to Florida to get your pappy.
How do you say Winkle in Indian?
Oh, I don't think we say Winkel.
Yeah,
I think you say we don't have it.
Van Winkel.
Van Winkel.
I don't.
Buffalo Trace also makes a bunch of.
We call it
variations.
Johnny Walker.
They also make all the variations of the different Wellers at Buffalo Trace, the WI Weller, the Special Reserve, the Antique, the William LaRue Weller, which is part of the Antique collection. They make quite a few of those.
Those are very pretty.
And they're excellent. They're some of my favorites out there. There's a bunch more. We've got Masterson's Wheat. We've got OYO Oloroso. We've got Dry Fly Wheat, Seven Brothers Wheat, New Holland, Rough Stock, Cedar Creek, Cody Road from Mississippi is one I'm familiar with.
Good luck trying to find any of these in Florida.
Garrison Brothers is in Florida. They do make a wheat.
Oh, Garrison, I tasted his. The guy who makes the whiskey came to my shop the other day, and I tasted his stuff. I was floored by the quality. I couldn't believe it.
Amazingly good stuff from Texas there. They're making some good stuff there. The
And
Smooth
it was-
Ambler.
That's
in
not what
West
I've heard from
Virginia.
Texas. It's about steers and something else, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
The Smooth Amber Ewing is one that they make. They're actually making in-house up in West Virginia, and that's a wheater. And then there's another one in North Carolina that I'm familiar with because I have a lot of family there called Topo, T-O-P-O.
I thought they were called hillbillies.
Did I forget to mention anything else that was here?
The only other wheats that I can think of is the Willet has some of the private bottling family reserve wheaters.
Yeah, LDI, MGP products. Yeah, they made a few as well.
Their ryes are phenomenal.
Yeah. And that's about it. I believe Julieanna has the tale of the wheater background.
Oh, yes. A story has been around for years, as many have. And this began with Bill Samuels making a bunch of bread of different recipes, not having had time to distill, and age different mash bills, and liked the wheat recipe the best. Sure, why not? Thus making Maker's mash bill that was born. This story is almost certainly pure fiction, as the mash bill, and much other initial assistance was given to him by Julian Pappy Van Winkle Sr. in the 1950s. The real history of wheated bourbon is an interesting and slightly incestuous one. The best illustration of this is to behold a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle Family Reserve 15-year-old bourbon. Depending on when the bottle was released, it'll be composed of up to 3 different wheated bourbons. Those from Buffalo Trace, current producers of all the bourbon to be bottled as Van Winkle, by the way, the new Bernheim Distillery in Louisville, and the hopefully soon-to-be reopened Fitzgerald Distillery. The latter is the spiritual home of wheated bourbon. Lots of history around these products, and the provenance of the bottle in your hand isn't always what you think it is. Next up, we're going to talk about what's in the bottle and what's not on the what's on the label in our Weeded Showdown. And a tongue twister.
Now, Jason and I had a very interesting conversation about a little bit of this history because there's a lot of histories of wheaters in there.
But yeah, I mean, basically, I think, Bob, you and I heard the same story that back in the day, Stitzel Weller shared their recipe with Heaven Hill, and that's basically how the wheated whiskey recipe spread around the bourbon industry.
Yeah, I mean, Pappy was the king with the old Fitzgerald line for many, many, many years. And what I read in Pappy's book was basically that back in '43, when they sold the T.W. Samuels Distillery, Mr. Samuels Sr. was out of the business for about 10 years, and he went back to Pappy because once it's in your blood making whiskey, it's hard to get it out, and said, I'd kind of like to make something like Old Fitzgerald. And as we were talking about it, Pappy said, hey, I think that's a good idea. I'll give you a recipe, and I'll give you some yeast, and I'll send my head guy down, and he'll show you all the ins and outs. And that's basically where Makers came from, which is probably one of the reasons why I like it. So.
Yeah, it's exactly what I've heard.
Well, he knows that story because he's a made man. You got to know people to know people before you know the real story. Or you have to have a good Indian
premium
accent.
Product and keep it in short supply. Smart man.
And they get it on movies and TV a lot, too.
Yep.
Well, it's really great to kind of cover a little bit of background on wheaters, the brands, as well as the story behind this, because it's really quite a long, storyline, around this product as well. And when you guys think about the balance of the amount of rye bourbon versus wheaters, I mean, where is the balance between those two? Is it like 70-30 or 60-40? Or
I mean, I would say the number one spirit in America is obviously just a regular bourbon. And then the second produced would probably be rye and wheat, somewhat tied. I mean, there's been a resurgence of rye and wheat in the last 10 years. And that's as the bourbon category has grown, so has, developing a taste for trying different types of American whiskey, and that's why wheat and rye are so popular right now.
Has bourbon already unseated the dreaded Tennessee whiskey? Aren't you guys in Tennessee?
yes,
We are in Tennessee.
Isn't Jack Daniel's still atop of that pile?
Yeah, Jack Daniel's is on top of that pile, but the one thing I like to educate people on is Jack Daniel's is a bourbon through and through. They just like to slap the Tennessee name on it and try to pretend like there's somebody different.
Well, they say that whole that extra barrel charcoal outside of the barrel charcoal treatment disqualifies it, right?
No.
Actually, that's the only thing that makes it Tennessee whiskey.
That's how they convinced everybody. I mean, if you think about it, J.W. Dant back in the day was charcoal mellowed too. I mean, there's been a lot of products out of Kentucky that have gone through charcoal and
For
still
a while,
are to this
Dickel
day.
was made in Kentucky. So.
Yeah, after Prohibition, Dickel was made in Kentucky. I got bottles of 13-year-old bourbon Dickel from Kentucky.
See, this is what happens when I read the propaganda.
Yeah. If you go on the right distillery tour, you can still see some of the vats where they used to do the charcoal mellowing for Dickel when it was made in Kentucky. So.
Yep.
Well, cool. Well, I really enjoyed the discussion. Listen, we're going to take a quick break here. Then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about our tasting notes around some of these bourbons for today. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for coming back to My Life is Better Than My Teddy Bear. I'm just getting into the trauma of losing my teddy's eyeball that happened 4 or 5 years ago. It's a wonderful part of our show today.
Stop laughing. I still have mine.
Of course you do.
Hey, we're talking about wheaters today, and we're going to go around with our top 2 picks by one with our tasting notes, and then cover anything we didn't talk about, because definitely it's showdown time.
Let's get ready to rumble!
All right, here's that list that we'll be tasting once again for today, in case you lost track. So far, it's Bernheim Origin, Larceny, Maker's Mark, Old Fitzgerald 12-year-old, Rebel Yell, and Weller 12. Those are the products that we're going to go over today. So up first with their top pick is going to be good old boy Jason. Take it away, Jason.
Okay, well, my top pick is going to be Weller 12-year-old with a SIPS rating of 5.
Oh, my
How
goodness.
about that?
Yes!
And that rating is, oh my, I was unaware anything could be this good. My tasting notes for Weller 12 is sweet, lots of oak, a great complex bourbon through and through. My second favorite would be the Old Fitzgerald 12-year-old. And I gave that a SIPS rating of a 3. Interesting. What was that again? And my tasting notes with Old Fitz 12-year-old was a slightly sweet taste with a very grassy finish.
Well, cool. So I know you've had a lot of us have had these products before, but walking in today, did you think, oh, I just know this flight, I'm going to pick my top 2? Or
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
At least you fessed up to it.
Oh,
Jason.
yeah. I mean, I've tried all these, and there's without a doubt Weller 12 is just cream of the crop.
Huh. How about that? Well, next up is going to be good old boy Bob with his top 2 picks, his SIPS ratings, as well as his tasting notes.
It's a hard one for me because honestly, there's 3 of them on here I'd put very, very close. I'd say probably the Old Fitz would be my number 1 pick right now. excellent bourbon. Some really great color, great nose, banana, toffee. Really, really good. Nice thick vanilla, good spice to it. I'd give that a good 3.5 to 4.
Hold numbers here. A 3 or a 4?
Okay.
He's in the mafia. He can do whatever he wants.
Negative.
I'd say give it a 3.
A 3. How about that?
And then
interesting. What was that
Weller
again?
12, and Weller 12 was always one of my go-tos. And I probably, when you asked, hey, do you have a bottle of that so we can add it to the tasting? I believe my response was I probably have 15 here at the office, but
13 left now.
Yeah, but Maker's Mark is definitely just a sentimental favorite for me. I'd give that a solid 3 as well.
How about that?
Yeah, good flavor. It's the standard that everything else is measured by. Vanilla, wheat toast, just a smooth balance, just a well-produced bourbon overall.
Can I make fun of you now?
Sure, go ahead. Stopped you.
Well, so I don't know. So I'm going to keep with the same question going around. Did you have exactly what you had in mind before you even tasted the flight, Bob?
Yeah, pretty much. I knew what I was getting into.
What's the point of me even sending out the samples?
Because we get free alcohol.
I had all of them in the closet other than the Rebel Yell for obvious reasons. But
well, up next is good old gal Julieanna with her top 2 picks.
Well, I hate to be a flippin' copycat, but I have a feeling that we're all copycatting off of each other. For me, the number 1 is always going to be the Weller. God, that is beautiful. I mean, to me, this is the gold standard of what I want in a base wheat. And I could wear this as a cologne. It just smells so darn good.
And guys, she has.
And that's why we like her.
Would that actually match the Blackhawks outfit? How many people would you attract with Weller 12 as a cologne and the Blackhawks?
Many.
Okay.
Many.
I was gonna say, I'm in with
Greater
the
Chicago
Weller 12, but the Blackhawks kind of just doesn't do it for me.
And I would convert many too.
You have to be very passionate.
Very.
Have your birthday present already lined up.
Pretty much.
I'm going to keep the Pappy, send you the Weller.
So for this, I give it a 5.
How about that? A 5. Oh my, I was unaware anything could be this good. On you or in you.
Wow.
This is a public radio show.
That's correct.
Yeah, but it's 2 a.m.
That is not one of the FCC dirty words.
But the teddy bears might hear.
I agree. So what else is on your list?
And second for me, again, is Old Fitz. It's great. It is so great. Again, wonderful aroma as well as taste. Just very smooth for its price point and a great value. And I give this one a 4.
How about that? A 4. Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another. Well, quite fascinating. Up next is going to be good old boy Harmeet with his top 2 picks.
This was very difficult for me. Let me tell you. First, you give me bourbon. I asked for scotch. Don't know what happened here.
That's another show.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Actually, there's the great wheated whiskey coming from Scotland these days. But let's stick with the subject, I guess. I totally cribbed off your sheets. Weller 12 was my favorite. Yes. It was, big apple and pear fruit, soft. The oak was really well integrated into it. Layers of flavor. The spice came out at the end, and the finish just went on forever. I wasn't expecting that. As I may have mentioned before, I drink mostly Scotch, so I wasn't expecting this. This is how I'm differing from you guys. I didn't quite know where I was going here when we came into this. And then number 2 is the Fitz 12. That was just very pretty.
So what was your sips rating on your Weller there?
Oh, sorry.
It's good.
Both the Weller is a 4.
How about that? A 4. Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another. And your next one was
the Fitzgerald 12.
Okay.
Old Fitzgerald. There was a lot of corn at the front. And then as I let that air out, it just kind of dissipated, and I got the tropical fruit. As Bob said, the banana bread, the banana was there. The way it felt on the tongue was oily and smooth. Great vanilla and warm spices again. But the finish with a little bit of water, I don't know, did I offend anybody adding water to my whiskey?
No.
I mean, I think that's... Frankly, that's the way it should be done, and any of you who don't do that, you're not real men.
Yeah.
Or women.
I'm going to beg to differ on that one.
Well, I think it depends on the proof.
I don't think I've ever seen a master distiller walking up and down the rack house with a bottle of water in his hand.
Yeah.
It's as long as it's not the pretentious eyedropper, I'm okay. But I also gave it a 4. I loved it.
Wow, how about that? The similar rating as well.
Classified.
Let's keep this secret to ourselves. Pour me another. Well, there you have some of our ratings have gone around. I'm up next. So my top pick was also the Weller 12.
Oh, surprise!
I know, really.
So at least it was in our top 2 all the way around. So that's pretty cool. So my tasting notes on Weller 12. It's interesting, some very similar words. I actually wrote down, it is the de facto standard for wheater, as far as I'm concerned. Just this very sublime balance. I really love, you said long finish, and I really love the finish off this. When I talk about tasting profiles, it's kind of like, how does it shoulder on, how's it in the middle, and then how does it, kind of finish out. This has what I call a long tail on it. It just keeps kind of lingering going on your tongue.
It's got the longest finish of any of them.
It really does, and I think part of it is just...
It helps that we have our own full bottle here, not just your sample.
Well, it is the longest pour I think all of us have had today as well. But even with that, I think it's very sweet on the nose, and I think that's what's contributing to a lot of that long presence of the finish off this as well, is the measure of sweetness that's coming off this, that residual sugar is just kind of hanging around on your tongue for a really long time. And so just really fabulous. I give the Weller 12 a 4.
Classified.
Let's keep the secret to ourselves. Pour me another. So I have a very interesting second choice, and my second choice is actually going to be the Bernheim.
All right, some love for the Bernheim.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, I know.
It's
so
almost not
iconoclast.
fair
You're
that the
totally an
Bernheim is
iconoclast.
thrown in.
I know.
Here, it's so different. I mean, it's not a bourbon. It's so different, but it's so good.
I know, and so that was one of the key words that I put here in my tasting notes. Very different. A very sweet nose. It was very floral. I just really thought it was very interesting flavor profile. We taste a ton of stuff on the show, and Julieanna and I do a lot of Suds shows. It was a little bit of essence of a floral hop at times, reminding me of some of the things you would almost taste in a beer. And even the way some of it just kind of presented itself all the way through and through. We actually have another bourbon we'll do on another show that has some of the same qualities as this in terms of a floral presentation, but it's not a wheater. So, but I really love this. First time I'd had it, I walked into the flight today. I'd probably had maybe 3 or 4 of these, but no real preconception about where everything was. I drink the Weller all the time as well, so I kind of knew where that was at least going to. I knew it was in the lineup, but anyway, the Bernheim for me is also a 4 as well. So really great. Really great wheater. I really enjoyed it.
Bernheim is unusual in the fact that I haven't seen this in years. It's one of the few whiskeys I've seen that has actually added an age statement in the last several years.
That is
when it
true.
first came out.
Yeah, the newest bottles are
When it
coming
first
in.
came out, the old bottles with the big copper disc didn't have an age statement, and recently they added up to 7 years. But it shows you what you can really do with a wheat base. It's a phenomenal whiskey.
Well, one of the things we have time for here is Jason recently talked a little bit about some of the history of the Bernheim distillery, and certainly if you feel up to it, Jason, I'd love to hear a little bit more about Bernheim.
Yeah, there was just an article put out about the history of the Heaven Hill Distillery and basically its heritage. And it was just really interesting to me because Heaven Hill was founded by a Jewish guy who would not put his own name on any of the whiskey that it created. The trend in the industry was to put your name on the bottle. You had Beam, you had Taylor. You had pretty much every whiskey had somebody's name on it, and they didn't want to put their name on it because their last name was a Jewish name, Bernheim. And it wasn't until after the distillery sold, and now it's owned by the Shapiro family, which is also a Jewish family. And in honor of the originating founding members of the distillery, they created Bernheim and named it after that Jewish founding father, which is just really interesting to me. And if you go to the distillery, I haven't seen this, I read this in the article, but apparently the rafters in the gift shop are held up by Star of David's in honor of that founding family.
Wow.
That is
cool.
true. That is true. I've been there.
Huh.
Well, Isaac Wolf Bernheim, as you said, he was a pioneer, and that's where I.W. Harper came from, because he felt the need to anglicize his name to be able to sell the product. And for many years, I.W. Harper was one of the number one bourbons in this country.
I blame you.
Number one bourbon in the world. It was. I mean, they were sold in 11 plus countries, and it was the number one spirit in those countries.
Still very big
huge
overseas. And Isaac Bernheim was just a hell of a good guy. I mean, if you go to the Jim Beam Distillery, directly across the street is the Bernheim National Forest. It's something like 16,000 acres that was wasteland when he bought it, that was replanted by Frederick Law Olmsted. I mean, this man paid for all of this and made this absolutely stunning forest that he gifted to the people of Tennessee. And another interesting fact about Isaac Bernheim, there are 2 statues in the Statuary Hall in the U.S. Capitol that he donated. They are the only 2 statues there that were actually purchased and donated by an individual. I mean, a very great man who did a lot of good things in this business.
Wow, there's a lot of great information on this teddy bear show.
I'm a plethora of useless knowledge.
I think all lawyers are.
Pretty much, yeah. Useless is being the key word.
Yeah, that's for sure. Who am I sending the bill for this? All right. So, really great. Thank you, Jason, very much for covering some of the history on that. You had a little bit more?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about the products that we tasted. The one that stood out for most of us was that Weller 12-year-old. And I will tell you from somebody who's tried a lot of whiskey that I think wheated whiskey is one of those spirits that needs to age longer than most normal bourbon. And
You're absolutely correct.
So I just think personally, we're seeing a lot of wheat whiskey come out from all the craft distilleries, and where it's a decent spirit, it's not going to be great until it gets some real age under its belt. And I will say in another decade, I think we're going to have some incredible wheat whiskeys on the shelf.
Yeah, you've hit that nail on the head. If you've been fortunate enough to try the last release of Parker's Heritage, you can see once you take a wheater and you actually give it the age that it needs, how amazing.
I'm coming from the other end. I've tasted a lot of craft spirits in the last few weeks, and they have to make their money back. I understand that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're releasing the stuff way too young. 2 years is not enough for a wheater. It's exactly like you said, another decade.
Yep, exactly.
Well, I would say, at least just based on the products that we have here, is it, I would almost draw the conclusion it's in that, 10-year mark or higher is kind of the magic maturation time. If you have just a pure, barrel-aged, no scientific, pressurization moment.
Right.
Jason and I are laughing about the Cleveland product that we tasted that almost has like a first maturation, process. So, I really enjoyed this part of our discussion. There's still, several products we didn't talk about, and I want to go through maybe one of these real quick, then we'll take a break and we'll come back and talk about some more. So, if you had to pick the product that was absolutely dead on the bottom, what's it going to be?
Rebel Yell.
Ooh, all right. There's one for Rebel Yell. Juliana?
Don't hate me. Maker's Mark.
Maker's Mark. And Jason, how about you?
I'm going to go with the tie between Rebel Yell and Larceny. They're just too young. They're too young.
And Harmeet, how about you?
My mom cannot pronounce it. Her Indian accent is not fake. It's Rebel.
Okay.
Rebel is disgusting, but not really. I mean, it's too young. It's got potential.
So here's the thing: it was a good whiskey back in the day, in the 50s. I've had the very good fortune of trying some much older Stitzelweller produced Rebel Yell, and it was, I mean, they were making bulk whiskey back then and putting names on it to appeal to certain markets. And Rebel Yell was never sold south of the north of the Mason-Dixon line. The older stuff was very good, but they're turning out, way too young.
We opened our stores back in the 80s, and Rebel Yell back in the day was good. This is what they're putting out.
It's a shadow of its former self.
And let's go ahead and say that Old Fitzgerald, when it was Stitzelweller whiskey, was hands down much better than it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much.
I have to say something with the Julieanna, though. I didn't like the Maker's Mark at all until I let it breathe.
Yeah.
It had to open up. At first, the big note was nail polish. It was acetone.
Yeah.
When you let it open up for about 10 minutes in the glass, 5 to 10 minutes, that's when the fruit started coming out. So Makers, you can give it another try.
Like
maybe a little bit
If you
more.
haven't tried the Maker's Cast Strength, I would tell you to absolutely give that one a try, because it's Maker's, but even more so.
That's the way it should be.
Let
me taste it months before it was available in Florida.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you that Maker's Cast Strength, I tried it the other day for the first time. If that was given another 4 or 5 years in the barrel, that would be up there on the top 10. They just need to let that go a little bit longer.
It would be also about $40 more a bottle.
Yeah, but you know what? People would pay for that because it would be an incredible whiskey.
I would.
Thank you. Just give me your numbers and I'll be staging that whiskey for you.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about our sips ratings for Rebel Yell. I give it a 3. So, Jason, how about that for you for Rebel Yell?
Rebel Yell, I give that a 1. Give me a glass of water. I need to wash my mouth out right now.
How about it, Bob? How about Rebel Yell? What was your sips rating?
Oh, God, a 1 at best. Yeah.
Juliana, how about your sips rating for Rebel Yell?
Yeah, that was down there, too. I was sitting in the 2s.
And the 2s,
isn't
about
that
that. Nice, but what else do you have? And, Harmeet, what was your rating for that?
I'm not as harsh as you may think. I thought a 2 was right. Bob and Jason giving it a 1. Come on,
right.
There's worse stuff out there.
Well, I'm the high man on that.
Yeah, but
process.
I don't buy it.
And I don't drink it either.
It's good for loosening rusted lug nuts and all that. I don't buy that bounce.
It's a solid 2.
So the thing we kept on talking about there at the bottom as well is Maker's Mark. Very interesting taste notes I have here in front of me on this one. So, who else had it at the bottom? It was on my bottom. So, Juliana, what's some of your tasting notes on this?
I was more disappointed because I remember Maker's Mark, like from years ago, just having a better flavor profile. This was... It was all over the place, but not in a good way, if that makes any sense. I wasn't getting any blended notes. Everything just sort of stuck out, over the course of my tongue, and I just needed to drink water quickly afterwards. And no offense, Bob. No offense.
So what was your sips rating on this, Juliana?
That was a 1.
A 1.
Wait, you gave Rebel Yell a 2?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's right. Blackhawks fan. Never mind.
More refined. That's me.
Yes, there's 2 things working. A Blackhawks fan and somebody that's married into the state of Alabama. That's a questionable panel.
Roll Tide.
Jason, what was your tasting notes on Maker's Mark?
I said Maker's Mark was light. It had a little bit of a grassy note, which is obvious with weeded whiskeys, but my biggest thing was it had no finish at all. It was just flat. And I'll go with what I've been saying already, that I think the whiskey's just too young. I mean, 5-6 years ago, the whiskey was a little bit older than it is. They had a shortage with their supply, and they took the age down, and you can taste it. I mean, there's just
a shortage. Never heard about that.
Yeah.
Was there anything in the news about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Weren't they the number one people pushing the whole shortage thing? I mean,
it goes back and forth between them and Buffalo Trace. I think they both pretty much like to put out an article every other week that they don't have any bourbon.
Yeah. Well, Buffalo's doing rolling blackouts in our state right now.
They do it everywhere.
Yeah. What was your sips rating on Maker's Mark?
My sips rating on Maker's was a little bit nicer. I gave it a 2.
A 2.
Nice, but what else do you have?
Well, there we have a little bit of discussion about some of the things at the bottom. We are going to take another quick break here. We'll be back. We'll continue our discussion about Maker's Mark right after this. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome back to Sips, Suds, and Smokes. I'm sorry, you've come back to My Life is Better with a Teddy Bear. We're discussing fur care and the reductions of odors from your teddy bear. Okay, so listen, I actually must...
Fabrice is your friend.
So I have to confess a little bit of what got me on this kick about the whole thing teddy bear is my niece was actually asking me how to clean a toy bear for her son that was actually beginning to smell kind of bad. And but
the son or the teddy bear?
Well, probably both.
If it was Julieanna, she just put some Weller 12-year on it.
I was going to say, a spritz at 12 would be great.
Right behind it.
Yeah, I agree. That was probably one of the options, I should have explored. So I told her, so the problem is that the bear had an electronic voice box and it made, noise and stuff. So I told her that all toys that make loud noises are evil and just dunk it into the washing machine. So that actually solves two problems at once.
Win-win. Yeah.
I know. So if my wife and I happen to actually give you a toy that makes noise, it's just because we want revenge. And we'll probably... and it's really retribution for what your parents probably did to us. So... So that's where I got on this kick of my life as a teddy bear. I just kept on thinking about that as I was working through the show ideas for today. So we were talking about Maker's Mark here, and I wanted to cover a little bit of my tasting notes, and then we'll swing back to Harmeet as well. So, I don't think that I've ever written this down for a bourbon. So it's very harsh up front. It has a charcoal wood nose. It's like a barbecue in my mouth. What brand of Kingsford is involved with this? That was what I actually wrote down.
Barbecue in my mouth sounds like a good tasting note, man.
My sips rating was a 2 for this. Yeah. So, Harmeet, what was... so you said the Maker's Mark opened up for you. I'm curious what you were tasting or smelling, or what Indian spice was involved in bringing you around to this moment.
No, when he tasted it.
It's all about the cumin, let me tell you. We call it jeera. In Punjabi, it's jeera. And jeera must be toasted, that's the thing. That's the secret to Indian cooking. Always toast your spices. That's a different show, though. Okay.
I am toasted.
I told you he started with 17 bottles of Weller here, but,
You said 12 a minute ago.
Earlier, it's at first it was frickin' nail polish. It was nail polish. It was acetone. But
is that what women from Alabama? Is that what they wear as nail polish? It's Maker's Mark.
Okay. My wife introduced me to the SEC, and every football season, it's crimson nails.
Yeah, God love you.
On the frickin' toes. On the big toes.
Let's get ready to rumble!
God. I went to Tulane. I think, Jason, we were talking about that earlier.
there's a bright moment, at least, in the scheme of things. So
Yeah.
that explains...
The green wave doesn't compete.
No, we do not. I went to Tulane, too, and I can tell you we do not have a good sports team.
Education adjustment and marrying into someone in the state of Alabama. The picture is complete, Harmeet.
I didn't tell you. I didn't actually finish my PhD either. So
It's Tulane. He measured in Sazeracs.
That's a good way to do it.
Sazeracs and Mardi Gras beads.
So what was your sips rating on Maker's Mark after this great elation moment of the floral hint on it of Kingsford?
I did not hate it. It was a 3. It was a solid 3.
Okay, all right.
Interesting.
Let it open up, kids. That's the secret there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there were a couple of others that we didn't talk about quite as extensively, so we did not talk about Larceny as well. Jason, you put that on the bottom. What were some of your tasting notes on Larceny?
So the Larceny, I said, I'm saying pretty much what I've been saying over and over again, that it's just too young. I mean, the Old Fitzgerald is the same exact recipe as the Larceny, and you can see the difference between a young one and an older one, and the older one's better. So
when they're too young, it's a felony.
Yeah.
except in Alabama.
Yeah, except in Alabama.
That's correct, yeah.
But yeah, I just said it was light, it was grassy, it tasted too much like raw spirit. It just didn't have enough oak, it didn't have enough finish on it. So I gave the Larceny a sips rating of 2. Nice, but what else do you have?
Cool. Well, in contrast, it was interesting. This was actually something that it didn't make my top 2, but it was right there with my third. So it's kind of interesting. I didn't write a whole lot about Larceny, which a better balance of kind of smoke and wood, kind of off this. And I don't know, just it wasn't quite there for me to kind of bring it into the, above the Bernheim, but I actually like this. I actually gave it a 4, so,
Wow.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm not the bourbon expert here at the table.
It's your legal background. Larceny makes you money.
Any other tasting notes here on Larceny, Bob or Harmeet?
Bob, go ahead.
Go ahead.
He's the other lawyer here. He knows more about Larceny than I do.
It's, just to reiterate what Jason said, he's dead on the money. It's. I mean, basically, this is Old Fitz that has not taken the time to mature. It's extremely young. The alcohol is very forward. The oak really doesn't have a chance to come out. It's grassy. It's very light. I mean, it's if you can get it at a proper price point, it's not bad. But it wouldn't be the first thing I'd grab off the shelf. I gave it a 2.
Well, isn't that nice?
Nice. What else do you have, Julieanna? What do you think about Larceny?
I didn't like it a lot at all. Actually, there's 2 words that come to mind for me with this one: white lightning and caramel coloring.
Huh?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I can almost hear the distiller now. He's just,
Let's get ready to rumble!
I'm glad we have some lawyers at the table.
Yeah, really.
You can't blame the distiller for what they bottle. That's marketing people.
But
Distiller
again,
made that to age.
more brown.
yeah.
It's the name Larceny and the whole story behind that. So.
But again, it's about the aging, and in this case, the lack of aging. And you can just tell that it's not complete. And, like it's been reiterated, it needs a lot more time. And, so sorry.
What was your sips rating?
It's a 2.
2.
Well, isn't that nice?
Well, we have maybe one other product that I thought we'd chat about, and that's the Old Fitzgerald. And I don't think anybody picked this in our top 2, did they? I don't think so.
The 12-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was mine.
Oh, that was one of your top 2.
That was mine too.
Yep. So I have I think I have the birthday editions of this. Is that the Old Fitzgerald birthday editions that have different...
No, that's Old Forester.
Old Forester.
Old Forester.
Oh, well, there you go.
That
So
stuff is
completely different bourbon. What planet are you on? That's why I got those
Brown
confused.
Foreman, the other side of Louisville.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that, guys. Hang on a second. I need some more Weller here to get through this. Well, so some of my tasting notes on Old Fitzgerald, it's kind of a sweet nose, smoke, and then it just had even more smoke. I mean, it was just like smoky. Did I mention that, smoke? So my sips rating for Old Fitzgerald was actually a 3. Julieanna, what did you think about Old Fitzgerald?
Yeah, I reiterate what Jason said. I completely loved it. And being an Isla lover, of course I'm going to go with this.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because I love me some smoke.
I like peaty smoke. This was not peaty. This was like wood.
I
wood
like smoke.
It was not Kingsford. So
Heck no.
Have you guys done a show on the Texas whiskeys?
No, we have not. Maybe we'll put that on the schedule.
You want some vile barbecue in your whiskey.
Good point. Good point. Well, we are going to do a smoke show on smoked meats. And so I have a feeling that, I can't tell you the number of times I've had near religious conversations about barbecue. It's just, they're definitely the odd ducks. They, for whatever reason, their aversion to not using the pig, I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't work for the rest of us. So. Well, any other comments you had about... so I'm the only one that mentioned the Bernheim, but I didn't get to hear some of the other tasting notes on the Bernheim. So anyone else want to talk about that one?
I was with you. I mean, it's just really different. Because it doesn't have a lot of corn, I think the wheat really does come out. And the wheat is much more of a grassy tasting grain to me. So the Bernheim really does stick out in this group as being, very, very light, much more grassy. On my tasting notes, I almost said it was kind of medicinal tasting, that there was so much of that grassy taste. And then going back to what you said about the Old Fitz 12-year-old, I'll tell you something that was really surprising to me is usually when comparing Heaven Hill products to Buffalo Trace products, I usually find that the Heaven Hill products are much more heavy on the wood and that the Buffalo Trace products are much more heavy on the grain. This really surprised me because the Weller 12-year-old had more wood taste to it than the Old Fitz did, which was, I hadn't tried them side by side in so long. That really was shocking to me.
The Weller's got a lot more time in the barrel, so that helps.
Yeah, and again, I think it's that residual sugar, component that I was talking about, and the reason why it just kind of lingers around, as well. It's very sweet on the nose. Other comments about Bernheim?
Well, for me, I thought it was really sweet. Very grassy sweet. Maybe that goes into your medicinal aspect of it, but it was a little too much for me, for what I want in a bourbon. So that was a little off-putting to me. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm still sitting here sipping it, and I'm sorry. I'm going to stand by. I do like the Old Fitz, a little bit more here in front of us. But yeah, I just, maybe it's just because I don't have, I'm not so hardwired of thinking, well, it should taste just like this. I'm just tasting it for what it is, and I'm going, this is really kind of, quite interesting. So I can't wait to, one of the products we're going to taste on a future show is Pine Barrens.
Oh, yeah.
Which is kind of down this path. I think that Bernheim is kind of going, I would say almost 1,000 times more floral for Pine Barrens. So very interesting product. I want to say out of Long Island.
Yes.
Where that distiller's out of. And I don't know, one of the most interesting products I've had in quite some time. It was at the same show that Bob and I were at in Sarasota, Whiskey Obsession. So, very interesting product.
If you like floral, I've got a scotch for you that'll blow your mind. I'll send you a sample.
Oh, okay. Well, I look forward to that for sure. Well, a very interesting flight all the way around, and I would definitely encourage you to explore some wheaters if you have not explored them so far. Don't get so much in a corn bourbon rut. For sure. And I think recognizing that not all grains are the same, when it comes to bourbon as well. And although rye is very predominant in use, that I think if you're looking for something that's generally a bit more soft and maybe hit a broader range of palates, definitely pick up the Weller 12 if you can find it. That's for sure. All right. Well, let's close out our show for today. Thanks to all of our listeners here on Sips, Suds, and Smokes. You can catch all of our episodes online on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, Stitcher, PRX, YouTube, Uncle John's Basement, and Spreaker, our native media host. Our terrestrial radio stations are counting every time that I've said the word teddy bear today. And threatening to ban us, especially if I just sprayed it with Weller 12. There you go. Anyway, they're still choosing to pick up the show in spite of our lack of intimate knowledge about practically anything. And if you'd like to hear this show on your favorite radio station, listen, box a dual pack of Weller 12 and Old Fitzgerald. Send it to your favorite radio station with a little bow on it saying, put Sips, Suds, and Smokes on your radio station, please. And copy us on that note as well. You can reach us online anytime at info@sipssudsandsmokes.com. Our daily tasting notes flow out on Twitter every single day. Our handle is @SipSudSmoke. Our Facebook page is always buzzing with lots of news as well, so definitely check us out on there. Listen, if you're listening to us online, do us a favor and rate this episode. That's a great big help to us, and we actually get to see your feedback as well. I definitely want to thank all my co-hosts for being here today. Good old boy Jason, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good old boy Bob, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Good old gal Julieanna. And people can reach you online now, too.
I know. Can you believe it? Yep. I have my own email address, audiokitty@SipSudSmokes.
How about that? Thank you for being here. Good old boy Harmeet, in spite of your vast heritage of being from Tulane as well as hooking up with people from Alabama, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I've embarrassed my parents.
Well, listen, this is good old boy Mike. I'm going to ask you to join us once again and keep on sipping.
This has been a one-tan hand production of Sips, Suds, and Smokes, a program devoted to the appreciation of some of the finer slices of life. From the Dude in the Basement Studios, your hosts, the Good Old Boys, will see you all next time.